We started making these make dinner with me videos where I kind of talk about the ingredients that I have and what I end up tossing into the pan to make dinner. And it seems like they're having really great reviews from you guys. So we are going to make dinner tonight. If you're just meeting me, my name is Amy Cross and this is Across Legacy, where I teach you how to save money on groceries. Our grocery budget is $135 per person, which ends up being $4.44 per day. But I honestly don't like to cook every day and I hate to meal plan. So I'm going to walk you through how I make taco meat that we can have for dinner tonight, and a lot of it will go into the freezer for another busy night. So how I normally get beef is in these airtight packages. These are solid. They're totally frozen. Around 3 o'clock today, I realized that I needed to figure out what was for dinner, and I took 2 of these packages and I put it in the sink with some water, and within an hour it defrosted. So these 2 hard packages are going to go back into the freezer, and we're going to be using the already defrosted meat tonight. Many years ago, when I was becoming a new mom, the smell of taco meat was so bad for my morning sickness that I really did not like making it. But we seem to eat taco meat about once a week with different tacos and nachos, especially being a new family. So this was one of the first things way back in the day that I learned how to batch cook, so I didn't have to make it very often. When I was buying beef from the grocery store, I would get 5-pound packages of beef and then make that all into taco meat. Now our packages come in 2 pounds, so I'm normally making 4 pounds of taco meat at a time. I normally add onions and other vegetables that I'm sneaking into the taco meat when I'm making it. So I normally plan on about 1 large onion for every 2 pounds of meat that I'm using. And I also like to either add cauliflower rice or zucchini to it, and I can double the portion sizes by adding these vegetables. For the zucchini, I always peel it, and then I also try to make it about the same size as the onions, and that way it kind of disappears into the meat. So for this, we're going to use my large always pan, and we are going to start the onions and the zucchini together and get those browned down before we add the meat into the pan. So this is a pan that I use all of the time. I love that I can use it on the stove and put it straight into the oven whenever I need to. So this is probably the pan that I reach for the most. So as I'm making dinner, we're also going to be washing some produce because we just brought it home from the grocery store. So you might see more produce happening as this dinner is proceeding, but it's kind of fun to be able to stop the camera whenever I have something important to say and to show you what else I'm adding. I like getting it to the point where it's just starting to turn brown for the onions, and that's when I normally add in the zucchini. And then at this point is where I'm going to add salt and pepper and garlic. I believe in seasoning each stage. Okay, I don't want to add any more oil to this, and if my pan's getting too hot and I do need to add more oil or liquid, sometimes I'll just use a little bit of water in a jelly jar and add it to there because I don't want to add more oil and then add the meat. So I'm just adding a little bit of water to this just to make sure that it's not sticking on the bottom, and that way I can keep it on the high heat and cook it down faster. Now I have the zucchini and onions cooking down, and it's time to add the meat. And it's in the sink, and I'm going to end up using a knife that I can put in the dishwasher to cut into the package. So I have other knives that I can't put in the dishwasher. I always make sure with raw meat that I use this one that I can put in the dishwasher. Okay, while this is cooking down, I'm also pulling out the spices that I'm going to need to make my taco seasoning. Now, I always use single ingredient items to make our taco seasoning because we're an allergy family, and that way there's no hidden additives or other things in a package of seasoning. So we have the recipe for this on the blog, and you can check it out. We'll have it linked in the description. And while I'm in the kitchen and kind of tied to the stove right now is when I'm also kind of looking for any kitchen tasks that I can do while I'm still watching the stove. So I did see that my paprika bottle is almost empty, and I want to fill that up, and that way I'll have it. And I have some backup up here in the cabinet for the chili powder and the paprika that is low. So in my drawer of spices, I normally keep the 4-ounce sizes of jars, but I buy spices in bulk. And this is actually a 3 or 4 year supply for me. And as I open this, I put it in a glass jar with a metal lid, and it goes up here in this cabinet, which we call the roundabout. I keep a list of all of the spices that I use in my grocery planner, and that way I can really keep track of when I've bought it last and when I'm going to need it again. So this year in January, I bought smoked paprika. I hadn't bought that since April of 2022. I'm going to continue making this as taco meat, but I want to talk about what I would do if I didn't want to make it all as taco meat. Right now at this stage, when it's only had salt, pepper, garlic, and any of those vegetables that I want to sneak in there, the onions and zucchini with the ground beef, after I've drained any grease that I want to take off of it, is a great time to then divide it up into portions that you want to put into the freezer, and then you can pull those out and use the cooked meat for any kind of recipe. You can still use it as taco meat, or you could use it for anything else. As I'm filling up these spice jars, I also wanted to point this out. This is the smoked paprika I had. So I didn't wait until this jar was all the way empty and needed to rush to the grocery store. When my backup had about 1 jar left of smoked paprika, that's when it went onto the grocery list. So then I had time to be able to get it on sale and fit it into my grocery budget. You never know what tips are going to help someone. So as I'm filling this up, I'm also using a stainless steel straw that I'm kind of pushing it down and making it go faster in the funnel. So if you have a straw or a chopstick, that works really well. This is browned through and there's still a little bit of fat or liquid there at the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and add the seasoning to it, and then if it still hasn't soaked up, then I'll end up draining it. But I often don't like to use a strainer and get more things dirty. I know if you are going to come after me, it's okay. But I normally just push the meat aside and let the grease drain over to one side, and then I take a paper towel and some tongs and just clean that up really quick, and then it can go into the garbage can. So if you don't want to put paper towels in your dish, that is totally okay. You can use a strainer or do it however you prefer to do it. I just find this is easier. I almost forgot, I always add peppers into my taco meat. So that way I know that all the veggies are in the taco, and anything I can get them to add on top of the taco is just bonus points. So I always add a couple peppers, but I don't want to cut these fresh raw ones. I already have some that are in the freezer that I got on sale this fall that have been in the freezer now for about 3 months. And I love that I have mixed the colors up in these bags, so it just makes your taco meat look pretty, and I'll add it in. And I like to add it in towards the end so they still keep a little bit of their crunch, not at the very beginning when you're doing the onions and the zucchini. Normally I would add black beans into the mixture, but Mike has just decided recently that he actually likes me making black beans on the side. So I just put the entire can into a pot and add a teaspoon of cumin in that and a little bit of fresh squeezed lime juice. And I cook that until it's warm and bubbly and use it as a side dish. So make sure that you don't rinse the beans. Just put the whole entire can in the pot. And we were kind of laughing earlier when I pulled the meat out of the freezer. I didn't know exactly what I was going to make with it, but I do have 3 tortillas left in the cabinet. So there are 3 adults here tonight, and that's what we're going to have with these tacos. But we also do have some tortilla chips that I just bought on my February grocery shopping trip. So I found some of our mango salsa down in the pantry, and we get to crack one of these jars open. And if you're interested in making a mango salsa, we have this on the blog. And as we're moving into spring, especially around April time, is when you can find mangoes at the best price at the store. Okay, we shredded some cheese. I have the beans cooking on the stove. The meat is totally ready to go. And I almost forgot talking about the Greek yogurt. So we use Greek yogurt instead of sour cream, and that way it's way more versatile and it still has that tangy taste that you have of sour cream. And since I'm going to open this now, I will also be putting it in a quart-sized jar, and that way it's going to stay fresh 2 weeks past that Best By date here on the container. We are going to eat dinner now and kind of clean up a little bit, and then I'm going to start washing the produce from my grocery haul. So when we come back, there'll be a bunch of produce everywhere, but I'm gonna wait until that meat cools to divide it up into the containers to go into the freezer, and that way I can show you at the very end of the video how many servings we ended up with. Okay, we had dinner, the meat has cooled down, I washed all of the produce and washed the dishes, and now it is time to tell you how many servings we ended up with. So we ended up eating the tacos for dinner tonight, so there was 3 adults here tonight eating dinner, and we had that with the mango salsa and Greek yogurt and the side of beans. And then just the meat that's left over, we ended up dividing into containers that will end up being over 5 more dinners for Mike and I. I made sure to measure out the meat really carefully so I could keep track of how much was in each container, because I did want to make sure that it was all even. And I took a wooden spoon and I scooped it into the measuring cup. I did this so the metal measuring cup wouldn't scrape the bottom of my pan and make a scratch mark on it. And that way I knew each container had exactly 2 cups of meat in it, which is normally enough for us to have for dinner. And then sometimes there's leftovers that Mike can have for lunch the next day. And there was just about a cup left over after I divided it into the 5 containers. So I just evenly divided that between the containers. A lot of times I am freezing in my super cubes. I love those that you can freeze in 1 or 2 cup portions, and then you don't have to measure anything out. But for taco meat, I normally use these glass containers that I keep in my freezer, normally with the taco meat in them. I have 8 of these, so I always know when they start to get empty and start to go back into my drawer that I need to make taco meat again. So I like these packages of containers because they come in 8 in a package, and that way they're all exactly the same size. And I did cook this all in the 1 pan. It worked out to make all of this meat for 5 more dinners in the 1 pan, so I only had to wash 1 pot for dinner dishes. We normally have some sort of tacos or nachos every week or 2 weeks, and so this is going to last us at least 2 months, if not longer. I just write on these with a Sharpie marker, taco meat, the month and the year that I had put these in the freezer, and I was just laughing because I was taking one out of the cabinet and it still had the September date on this. So I haven't made taco meat since September, and now we're in the middle of February. I do have a large stand-up freezer that these glass containers fit in really well, but if you're trying to conserve space and just use a kitchen freezer, if you put the ground taco meat into quart-sized bags and make sure they're flat when you freeze them, then it saves a lot of space. All right, I'm going to go put these away in the freezer and let all this produce dry. So that means I can kick back and go watch a movie. But it's also one of my favorite parts of the day when I'm able to kick back and relax a little bit, but I also have my phone and I'm answering your questions here on YouTube. So make sure that you're leaving comments and asking questions. I spend at least 2 times every single day answering all the questions that come through on YouTube. If you're interested in more of these make dinner with me kind of videos, make sure that you're hitting subscribe.